Okay, well, if I share my screen,
I will need to let you do that first.
please.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Nigel, is that you again?
No. Down chap.
Yeah, it's the beauty of working from home when you've got your visions. So,
My retriever's in here somewhere. Oh, there he is.
anyway, just let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so my sort of caveat at the end of the day is I'm very candid, very direct. I think that's the luxury of getting a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Customers don't care about what qualifications they've got, what experience they've gained, how many projects they've done. All they care about is how it moves the needle for them. So I tend to get straight into it. I am quite candid, but then I believe that all businesses work on the pretense of moving the needle, and no business survives on any emotion, not in today's society anyway. So with that said, the sort of hats that I wear these days are threefold. I do marketing, SEO, and data. Each one then links to each other and then educates part and parcel for what they do. And to give you an idea of that, I tend to have what I call the GAF factor, because that's what differentiates me from other people. So would anybody like to hesitate what GAF as an acronym stands for?
No, give us the first one.
Oh, all right. It's give a fuck.
Ah!
It's blunt, it's direct, but what a client gets is immediately you understand what benefit is to them. So we cut through the BS and we get straight down to it. So without that, let's get straight on. You just make sure. There we go. Right, so the combination of the three working in tandem is exactly how I deliver results for clients. And I will show you some results after, relevant to the brands that I deal with. So, you know, it's no BS, it is actually proof that it's relevant to what I'm talking about. Ian threw down the gauntlet last week and said, you know, how did that create great content? So I've taken that as the narrative through this presentation to give you an idea of how you can literally turn this onto your content and make it more successful. So it's having a firm understanding of marketing, SEO, and data, because the combination of those three are the way that you're going to achieve it. And as you can see by the diagram there, the Venn diagram there, they all have an element of crossover. So you have the gap analysis here, that I look at the market, I look at the competitors, and that gives me insight into what you should or shouldn't rank for. I also then ascertain perceived keywords from the clients. That way then that guides me into what they should or shouldn't be ranking for. And they also look then how that translates into content. If you get the combination of that right, ultimately you're trying to achieve user experience, UX for short. So that gives you the engagement and the relevancy, but you're meeting the search query intent, which is 9 times out of 10 what someone is searching for on the internet. All make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So, number one rule, how do I do it through marketing? Well, ultimately, I do it through the VCP principle. I don't know if some of you are familiar to this as marketers. Visibility plus credibility is your path to profitability. Each one of them relates to your sales funnel. So you've got the visibility, you're bringing more visitors in. So they're at the top of the sales funnel. As they then interact with your brand, then your little repertoire and the consideration, they come out of the conversions at the bottom, which is there where you're trying to translate them into some sort of profitability. That doesn't always have to be a sale. That might just be something of value. If you're building a personal brand, that could be a like, a share, or additional following. But to get them from the top to the bottom, you need that center part of the sandwich. That's the credibility. That's everything that demonstrates your knowledge, your experience, your testimonials, your case studies, all the things that translate to trust, why someone should use you and favor you over someone else. So I firmly believe in the VCP principle because it applies to everything. It's been around for decades, but even in a digital environment these days, it can be used. Part and parcel then is your visibility. You make more sales, but sales don't happen unless you've got successful marketing. And ultimately, you don't want to leave people with marketing. You want to leave them with the taste of branding. So why do people buy the next version of a brand, say an Apple smartphone? And you think, some people are advocates, they'll just go and buy it. It's because you're trying to work all your brands towards strong brand advocacy. Okay? So that's the main principle I use with my marketing. There are 163 different types of marketing out there. Which one you choose and is applicable to your end client is purely up to you. But for me, they're always built on the foundation of VCP. So then how do I do my data? Well, data then is done from in-depth research. I tend to create a resource file which is based on gap analysis, competitor analysis, organic and paid searches, and keyword analysis. Lots of tried and trusted methods in there, and it's a heavy sprinkling of doing that normally 2 to 3 days with any particular client. Gives me a good insight to who they are, where they sit in their market, and if there's a gap in the market and therefore a market in the gap. From that element of discovery, we have a conversation that says, this is what you are ranking for or being perceived for on the internet. Is this what you want? And if not, you need to steer somewhere else. Okay? And very similar to what Peter Drucker, famous marketer, you said, you can't manage it if you don't measure it. So we look at lots of analytics as well, which takes me on to the next slide, which is then once we've got the combination of our marketing and our data, we need to do something with it. And this is where SEO has become the biggest player over the last couple of years, is knowing that in order to make it effective, you have to have the golden three. You have to have technical SEO, on-page SEO, and off-page SEO, okay? But you have two masters to serve here. The first one is the search engines, the biggest one being Google. And the second one is your audience who want to engage with your brand and obviously keep your business viable. Now, the thing is, you don't get to the second one unless you go through the search engines these days, because more and more searches are done online. And when you consider, you might be like Wish, £7 billion turnover, and you only operate on Facebook, or you might have a website and it might be a transactional website. Everything you do is pretty much under the guise of a search engine, predominantly, as I said, Google. So if you don't tick the boxes with them in order to rank high, you're not going to get in front of your clients. And this is key then for your content, because like a lot of times when I audit, I go into a company, I do a lot of auditing, and quickly I can see there's a lot of content being created, but 9 times out of 10, it doesn't resonate, it doesn't connect with the target audience. And actually, when you're talking about apples, you should have been talking about oranges. And it's when that is enlightened to the clients, then they realize we have a strategic plan to put in place, and we're back on marketing. But SEO enlightens us how we're going to put that into place. And from the diagram, as you can see here, SEO is probably front and center of all digital marketing these days, because whether you're writing a blog, you're going to do keyword placement in there from research, whether you're going to do a video, there's a transcript there that carries the keywords within it, whether you're going to put an image up there, there's geotagging in there, which again is education towards your target audience and for the search engines. Nothing is not touched by SEO these days. Obviously, the exception to the rule there is traditional marketing, exhibitions, workshops, and stuff like that. But even then, you probably haven't just done a traditional route to advertise those. You've probably used digital marketing as well. You'd probably use your emailing, website, landing pages in order to promote them and push them forward. So that's the magic three working in unison. But I'm going to dwell a little bit on SEO for the moment. The reason being is it steers you for your content. And here's the reason why. Back in August 2018, Google came out with their EAT policy, okay, which was updated from 2013. Any of you familiar with EAT? No, it reads like treacle. It's a 168-page document, but the short and tail of it is basically, it's to show that you're an expert in your field, demonstrate your authority, and build trust with your client, which is where, if you remember a couple of years ago, you could jump on many websites and accidentally be taken to a Viagra site or to a porn site, which was cloaking. Now, that doesn't happen as much these days because Google's found a way of policing the internet and ensuring that people deliver on point their relevancy through the EAT policy, which stands for expertise, authoritativeness, which I can never say. Most people say authority, and trust, but it's not, it's the long-winded version, because ultimately that's what you're trying to build. Build your expertise, show your authority within your field, and develop the trust then with the end client. So taking that a little bit further as a step, how do you build your expertise? Well, as I'm sure most of you, you've all been to university, probably got your degrees, then you've done some sort of CPD, continued professional development, as you've gone along your career. You've probably done more research, white papers, individual diplomas, who knows what, any sort of qualifications. That is important. That gets you a place at the table and makes you relevant to providing the offering. But it doesn't guarantee you stay there or demonstrate your knowledge and your experience that moves the needle. So therefore, that's important to be included in the loop. How many of us have done tenders and proposals? And it's all based on your expertise. It gets you so far for the process, but it won't take you across the finishing line. The next part then is building your authority. In order to show that you are the purveyor of content rather than curated content, you need to show your authority in it. So whilst most of us start here with our brands, we're quite small, we're not well known, we need to increase our offering, be that products or services. Ideally, this is what you want to be in the future. You want to be a strong tree. So you want roots. You want the strength of being known for different things. You want the solidity in the market of many topics you cover so that you become better known. So how do we achieve that? Well, you build it through trust. Basically, it's the combination of your expertise and authority over time will give you trust. And this diagram gives it in a little bit more detail. The branches of the individual topics. So for me, it's marketing, SEO, and data. And then the leaves give you the single pieces. So like this, then you can see it could be generate an ebook, write a blog, do a podcast, create a video. And by doing those varied types of content, you are reinforcing your individual content silos, and you're also demonstrating your knowledge within that field. So like we're doing a webinar now, that's another way that it can be done. And all this consolidation of information demonstrates your ability, okay? Whoops, sorry, my fault, my bag. So let's do some practical, because that's a lot of theory. Everybody up with me so far? Not too, yeah, because they're big subjects and I just literally have glossed over them, but glossed over them in a sense that you get the English version rather than the technical babble, okay? So we are going to do a little bit of analysis. We're going to look at Tony's website. And this is not critical, Tony. I think I alluded to that earlier. There's never talking about wins or losses. It's talking about where you're at. I call it the Bob Hope principle. Anybody familiar with Bob Hope, the American comedian? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, Chris. Okay, Bob Hope never wrote a joke in his life, right? But what he was really good at is when he was on stage, he knew when a joke worked or didn't work. And he used to come away, go to his writers and say, right, that joke didn't work. I need that one tightening up. So basically what he looks at is he looks at his brand and he's always fixing the weakest link, because like we say, that's the thing that most people remember. So if you keep doing that, you make a really strong offering. So what I'm looking at when I'm doing any sort of analysis, I'm looking at what's working, what's not, where there's room for improvement, because everything we do is dynamic, right? I could come in with a solution today, it'll change tomorrow, and so on and so on, okay? So if I jump out of this one a minute, I have got your website as it stands there at the moment. One of these knowledge bombs I'm going to give you today now is let's have a look at it through the eyes of a search engine. So any of you use the likes of Browse SEO Net? Nope. Okay, I'll take some head shaking, which is fine because there are hundreds of tools in SEO. What this one does is it literally strips out what the website should look like to you and I, and it shows what it would look like only to the search engines. So they get to see the digestible bits of information that rank your website, and this gives you an idea. Now you can see, obviously you've got 403 forbidden, the reason being because you're on HubSpot. HubSpot is notorious for only allowing Google bots and nothing else. So again,
it's a WordPress site actually, Andy.
Well, you've got two actually, because you've got a subdomain, haven't you, which is the WordPress site. The
subdomain is the WordPress site, yeah.
Yeah. So the subdomain would work on there. If I was to put the blog in there, now you can see it pulls out information, gives me the links in there, gives me a little bit. It doesn't give me a lot, but that's food for thought. You know, this is not to be damned. This is to show you what search engines see. So whilst you think you might be creating lots of fantastic content and putting it on there, if it's not being crawled and indexed, you're never going to get anywhere. All right. So this is just an eye opener, nothing more. Okay. And as I've done for Prith already, because she said she may not be here, I've already forwarded the information. I'll do that when I finished as well for you, Tony. Okay.
Thank you.
And if you want a conversation, more than welcome to. You know, at the end of the day, all I do is open the door. Whether people go through it or not and do anything with it, it's purely up to them. okay? But this would give you an insight of whether there's meta descriptions written or not. And I know on your particular website they are, because I've pulled them out through another tool, which is called Screaming Frog, which is a deep crawl. And you can see there's your URLs, and you can see your meta descriptions are written for all of them, which is fantastic. My next question to you is, what do you perceive yourself for as a keyword?
We've been talking about this for some time. So we're probably round about that iteration of the website. We're probably looking around something around inbound agency, inbound marketing, and HubSpot is where we're trying to go.
Okay.
We are currently shifting that more towards marketing technology.
Okay, so you're looking at the term like inbound marketing, lead generation?
No, not really. More inbound marketing and more,
okay,
and certainly HubSpot.
Inbound marketing, right? You can see quickly just dumping it all, and this is why I dump it all into Excel, because sometimes I could have tens of thousands of lines of code, but it quickly tells a story, okay? And that's kind of what I do as an art with a lot of clients, is I try and consolidate all that information, see what the story is, present that back to them, and then we have a strategic plan to move forward. Then we start doing our marketing. So you can see your meta descriptions already include the word inbound marketing, fantastic. Doesn't happen to be on the home page, happens to be on a subsidiary page, but it is talking about inbound marketing agency. So that could be purposeful, that's fine, no problem. And this is the thing when I'm talking to the clients, it is a case of working out the DNA, what works for you, because ultimately if I gave 20 customers 20 resources, they would run 20 different businesses, because what you prioritize, what your decision-making process is, how quickly you do it, how much resource you throw it, will be the human element that no one can ever ascertain, okay? So you can see, okay, that's mentioned in there. It's mentioned in there a couple of times. It's mentioned in there 3 times. That's fine, no problem. So you can see there's a flavor building up here. That's one of yours, like we used to call it, your elevator pitch. This is one of your topics that helps build your silo, okay? Bear with me a minute. I think we've got 2 people trying to come in, Tony. Or, sorry, it's a chat. Sorry, someone wants to ask a question. Sorry, Natalie. Have I got to do the...
No, you should be okay.
Hi, Natalie.
It might be a question that you answer as we go through this. So if it is, tell me to shut up. But this is really interesting. One area I really struggle with, and I suspect Tony might have struggled with this as well, is on your homepage, because your homepage is so visual and you're trying to get so much across, I struggle with, where do I put the SEO stuff in? So like mine's a WordPress site, which I suspect Tony's is as well. Where do you put it? Like, are you talking about in the descriptors at the back, or do you put it on the actual words? That's where I always get lost on my homepage, because I feel like I don't have enough real estate in that window to say maybe what I want to say, because particularly in marketing, say for example, I want to say strategic marketing, I don't know, Newbury.
Right.
There's like 100 other people doing the same thing, and there's not really enough space to define who and what I am in a very quick way that stands out on my homepage. And that's what I find bloody hard.
Okay. Right. The quickest answer to that is any website is a hierarchical structure of who you are. Okay. So if you consider you buy a book in a library, you go by the title. So you're using that generic keyword that describes your book. But ultimately, where your offering will differ to your competitors is the chapters inside, and then the content, because you will do it a different way. Google, and we use Google as the main search engine, but there are lots out there. Twitter, your own website is a search engine. They will dissect quite quickly from that homepage where you've used that generic keyword to the specifics of what you're talking about through the rest of your website. So the flavor of how you differ from everyone else brings about your individual DNA, that from the search engine's point of view and their machine learning, they know you're offering something different. So
if I was like an Indian restaurant,
yes,
which probably be more tasty than being in marketing right now, but there was an Indian restaurant, my homepage would be Indian restaurant, and then as you crawled through different pages, you'd find out that actually I'm an Indian restaurant in Sheen, and I specialize in these different dishes, and each page might focus on the dish.
Exactly.
Okay.
And all those reinforce that homepage, the main meaning.
Okay. Finally, I've got a question building on that then. So my business is called Cybarter, standing for cyber security and data protection.
Yeah.
So I've got two themes that most people talk about independently, but the reality is, for me and most customers, is those two things are totally intertwined.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I've got Cybarter at the top. What can you have two keywords for that, or is that confusing? Should they be microsites?
No, we call it the IFTDF, which is the inverse frequency term frequency, which is basically how many keywords can you have on a page, right? Yeah. Now, in the ideal world, you do as much content as possible because it's easier to place that in there. Strictly speaking, that's not true. And this is what, as a narrative, I want to keep as a thread all the way through this. Common sense supersedes everything. And this is what Google's EAT policy was built on, is not manipulating so much, because that's the job of SEO, is manipulation, right? Is not manipulating the reader, is giving them exactly what they want as intent. So like what you've got there, Chris, you will always have subjects that cross over. I'm doing one on an affiliate site at the moment for Japanese knotweed, right? And seasonal changes and characteristics of the plant are interconnected. So therefore, I'm naturally going to talk about it here and I'm naturally going to talk about it there, even though I'm trying to create two separate silos for it. Google will see all that, know that this is relevant to that and that is relevant to this. So therefore, don't be put off, because ultimately, you can have a conversation that's very niche about something. For instance, right, I want to eat an apple and I want to rank for apples, okay? But I might ask the question, what's the health benefits of an apple? As opposed to asking the questions, why should I eat an apple every day? Now, they are almost the same or they're slightly different, but they're going to draw different audiences. They might be the same audience, they might not, because we don't know. It's all dynamic, it's all changing. So therefore, always having those relatable conversations, we used to call it LSI, latent semantic indexing. So basically, when you talk about like inbound marketing, chances are you might talk about outbound marketing. You might talk about digital marketing, you might talk about traditional marketing, because they are connected. And because they're connected, it depends on how you stack your offering. Google sees how you differ from your competitor. No, we don't call it LSI any longer because technology has moved ahead. It's called NLP, Natural Language Processing, which is basically, it's a slide I've got a little bit later on, which teaches you when you write your content, write for the intent. So if somebody's asking you specific about a cyber attack, answer it specific to that question. But if they're talking generalistically, how many cyber attacks are there? And you could go on the ICO and you could see all them listed for the last 10 years. That's a slightly different question. And therefore you would serve it up with slightly different content. But it may not. You might actually reference back with that content as well. Purely up to you. The differentiator there is the question, right? And what do I mean by that? Is if you typed into Google now, what's the average foot size of a woman? Chances are it'll probably come back size 5 or something like that. That's answered the question. Yeah. So could you write 1,000 words on it? No. But if you ask the question slightly different, what's the average size of a woman's foot in the UK and around the world? Now it becomes a longer article. You're changing the intent. Right. So I look for the intent when I'm writing a question or answering it for the reader. So ultimately, you're always going to write some of the same content, and sometimes you're going to write unique content, but the two are always connected. Google sees it all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just going back to Natalie's question. So when you write for SEO, there is a technical side. I won't bore you with that, like markup, schema, all that sort of stuff. We could talk about it if we've got time. But on page, it comes back to marketing for me. Whenever I'm having conversations with SEO, what's above the fold? What's the thing that develops the trust? And I've got a good slide for that coming up. So I park that for now, but just let you know there is an answer coming. Okay, so we've looked in there, we've got an idea of some of the topics you're talking about. Yeah, okay, so let's jump back on. So I have given you a couple of suggestions and pulled out a couple of different things. So obviously you've got your rich snippets here. because you've been ranking for a little while. You can see you also have a Google My Business page, which is great because any SEO is local, regional, national, international. So if you're a hairdresser, plumber, electrician, you know what, have a Google My Business page because it's free. And it therefore is a quicker way to be searched locally, and you're in the map pack automatically from it, and you're on Google Maps as well, okay? So it pays to have it local, even if you're international. Look at Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Apple, Facebook, they'll all have Google My Business pages, and they're conglomerates. So at the end of the day, it still pays to have it. I noticed you had WordPress, you've got Yoast on there as an SEO package, and obviously you're running on HubSpot because you've got the difference between the two and you've got the blog on the one. It's quite common to see that sort of thing. I can see you've also got your G tag on there as well for your Universal Analytics code, which is in Google Analytics. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Google Analytics, but again, it's a vital bit of the data, that trifecta data, it gives you a good idea what's happening on your page. Authority score is quite low. Normally, for a small business, I'd expect you to be around about the 10 to 20, depending on how much consistency of content you put out there. But I put that down to you just recently changed the website, haven't you?
Yeah, quite dramatically, actually, and it's about to change again. It's a bit of a work in progress.
Because I think it was this year, isn't it? You changed it. I look on the way back. I can see it changed. Okay, so that might be because normally when you change something, Google says, "Hold on, let's be cautious." You go down a little and then you can come back up. So it might just be temporary. Okay.
So is your general recommendation, Andy, then, rather than doing infrequent big changes to a website, it's much better to work in the agile methodology, make small incremental changes as you progress?
Yeah, I think the old adage of a website has a life of 2 to 3 years is absolute BS. The thing is, would you reinvent yourself every 2 to 3 years? No, you'd keep adding to your existing CPD. So therefore, treat a website no different, make changes to it every single day. If you treat it in that analogy, it's dynamic, it ebbs and flows. And I've got another slide comes up later for this. But basically, if you give a shit, Google gives a shit. That's how it works. So if you don't do anything for a year, why should they pay good money? Because it costs Google money to crawl your website. Come and crawl your website and index it against others that are doing content every single day. They're not going to do it. So dynamic approach is the only way to work. But I think there's a question.
No, Chris has made a very good observation.
Big changes.
It your customers as well.
They can. When you do big changes, and that's normally migrations, I've done a few of those. They are quite, the last one I did last October, just after September, when you had the SCA rulings with PayPal and the banks coming out, the strong customer acquisition. We had to ask for everybody's bank details all over again because it was a transactional website. We timed it really well, and we went down for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then we came back up really strong. Migrating or big changes like that can throw people. Subtle changes over time are much more appropriate. And I noticed, like with yours, Tony, it was a big change because you had a lot of like black and white images, nice black and white images. I quite like them, to be honest. But you kept some and you're pruning. And is that a bad thing? No, not really. Because if you look at any Google Analytics, and I've looked at hundreds of them over the last probably 10 years, I've never seen one that hasn't favored more returning customers than new customers. You always get more new customers coming to your offering. So therefore, they're coming to you fresh. Right, so I looked, you've got 306 keywords. I've already pulled them out. Again, I build silos from that. I look for conversations. And this is another subject I go into, is I look for patterns and trends within the Excel sheet, and I can see where you're having specific conversations. And those allow you then to develop landing pages on your website, okay? Website speed is fine. You did have a lot of server requests go in there, but again, this is where you leverage functionality over form. You've got a CDN running on there. You've got a lot running back onto HubSpot. But if it's translating into leads, then it's worth having, okay? As much as everybody bangs on about speed, having a simple bit of text and an image on there isn't engaging. So you need to balance the books when it comes to functionality. I can also see you've got your sitemap on there. One of them then built as an XML. Also your keywords in there. The one thing I did find on there, and I thought was food for thought to discuss with you, is you've got it there. Ad agency lead generation is bringing 100% of your traffic online. And this is why I alluded to the fact of lead generation as a particular keyword earlier, rather than inbound marketing. It might be because it's a new website and Google hasn't crawled it enough and steering to the new conversation, but likewise, just to make you aware of it. It's
No,
that
that is
consistency.
useful. Yeah, we did. We had a big push on agency lead generation. That was one of our early campaigns, actually. So it obviously worked to an extent, but hopefully, yeah. As we continue to prune, there's a really good description, actually, Andy. The site is getting more and more pointy. It was very general when we started.
That's it. It's that Bob Hook principle.
Yeah.
The other one I noticed on your Google My Business page here is you also have a short description, 750 characters. I don't know if the keyword was in there as well. Again, this is something we call a NAP, name, address, phone number. It's consistency. So when you do a citation and you're on, say, Yelp, Thompson Local and all that, when somebody searches for the correct name, address, phone number, it's always the same. And people forget it when they move businesses. And then you've got two versions of the company on there. I've seen it as subtle as a limited company, and on one document they filled it out as LTD, and on the other one they've done the long version. And that subtle difference in Google's eyes means they could be two different companies and you could be losing value. So always remaining consistent with your message is another important factor as well. Right, so I'll move on because I'll provide all this evidence to you afterwards. So looking at Prith's briefly, I'm moving on. You had 3 seconds there. Could any of you tell me the memorable information that you've seen on Prith's website?
It was yellow.
Yellow.
Yellow? Yeah, fine. Fine. Anything credible?
There was a picture on it, but it was a picture of a person.
Right.
But I didn't remember anything else.
Anything
I saw the creative thinking company. That was very much at the title, the tombstone.
To be fair, I talked about this with with Prith on Friday, to be fair to her, and that's what she's got. In my opinion, this is me being brutal. Where's the credibility? Where's the top clients? Where's the logos? Where's the awards? Where's the professional organizations? Where's the testimonials? Where's the case studies? The things that build trust. It's not that that's probably not a credible website and all that, but I'm giving it the due diligence most of us do when we go through websites 3 seconds at a time. No, that is not, and we are that callous. We go through it quick. And to be fair to her, we had a good conversation, and I went on there today, and she's already started changing it, which is nice. I can see there are some testimonials here. She's put some top clients there. That is more informative to me as a person than what she had previously. Whether other people feel that or not, I don't know. But here's the thing, it's subjective, isn't it?
Well, Andy, for me recently, I've said to people, I will go onto a website, I might meet someone, have a conversation because of a referral. I will go to the website just to do a very quick scan and check. Does the story I've got stack up? I may not go 3 or 4 layers down, but just a quick flick around of 3 or 4 pages is what I'm looking for. And I know other people do that with my website.
Yeah, the difficulty is you need to become impartial to your own website. What looks nice aesthetically to you and pleasing isn't the point of a website. The point of a website is to get you leads, is to get you inquiries. So you need to see it through the eyes of your customer. What are they searching for? Is this image depicting it? Is this sentence talking about the benefits, the wants and the needs that the customer has? If it's not, you need to change it. One of the biggest problems that Prith had on there was each one of these was a H1 tag. There's 4 of them. No, the rules regarding H1 tags is 1 per page. And it's aesthetically, it doesn't look it. But when you look at the code and you realize these sort of technical issues, then you realize you're starting to shoot yourself in the foot. So I know that she's...
Would Google then sort of only take the first one, for example?
Yeah, so she's ranking for the word "the."
Well, that's not very good then.
No, exactly. Which, it's an easy fix by all accounts. It's literally just write as 1 and then change the spacing rather than write them as 3 individual. You don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. I still don't know what I don't know. I keep learning every day because SEO is a minefield. But when you see some quick, obvious things, it makes the difference. Plus, ultimately, we're trying to serve the reader, that we give them what they want. So I made some suggestions to Preth. Authority score was tidy. She got a reasonable number of backlinks, virtually nothing in keywords. So how's she going to be found? The speed is okay. Ignore this because that's just basically image needs to be optimized and stuff like that. That's always an ongoing. This is the thing that matters. And you can see that's a professional package we use called SEMrush, which looks at it and just says there's not enough value here being conveyed to the reader. And if you consider that Google has many ways of looking at the value, it's not going to put you on page 1, position 1. And that isn't going to guarantee you work, because I've done the vanity exercises of ranking page 1, position 1, and it still hasn't translated to any bloody work. You have to know all about it. You need to know that what you're delivering to your end reader is on point. Funny enough, the infographic she did for the marketing in crisis back in March is the #1 thing she's ranking for, which is nice to see how quickly something can rank, but quickly how it can distort what she is seen for. Even though she's been an artist for many, many years, something she's done in the last couple of months is basically what she's being found for.
So how would that have become that way? Is that because you put keywords tagged against that actual infographic that it's
in Prith's case, no, not at all. She hasn't done a single meta description on the pages at all. Now that's not a problem, because Google will organically find them in time and decide what it thinks you should rank for. But in this day and age where you're trying to compete against your competitors, you don't wait for that to happen, because that could take many moons.
So you're saying Google would have picked out those words: marketing, crisis, leaders.
The link as well to Tony,
Yeah.
the LinkedIn to the group. And because it was a rich piece of content rather than just text, that had more value. It's always about the value. Where is the value on the page? Because if you look at a lot of those blogs, they're not particularly long, but this one just had a bit more love in it. And that love translates.
So if you had a template and you keep putting the good words inside the same template there,
yes,
over time they'll rank less because it's seeing the same rich background, but different text. It's better to have an evolving style as well.
It is, because naturally, wouldn't you have an evolving business? You're not going to be one thing, are you? None of us are one thing. It might be our main thing that we describe, but we always provide context around it. So I do digital marketing, but I do it as well as SEO and auditing. So I'm providing context into different topics that relate to it and show how I differentiate my market. And this is just quickly doing a quick crawl on Press, and you could see there was not a single meta description on there at all. So again, that's kind of what SEO do. We write the search engine result page, which is a title tag, meta description, things like that. So it gives you context. What I'm trying to convey today is that you don't care to be the mechanic and fix the engine, but you need to know how an engine works so you don't get ripped off and then you move in the right direction.
So with rich content, Andy, things like video and graphics and so on and so forth, those will come as higher rankings through Google and most of the search engines?
It depends. Okay. And the reason it depends is because it depends what you're asking from the search query. Now, if I was typing in the egg custard tart, chances are I would have recipes, reviews, and videos served to me, because the chances are I'm going to make one. And Google knows the intent of the reader and serves up the appropriate information. But if I was looking for directions to go from Swansea to London, chances are I'd have a map shown to me. There are all these different types of content, and the intent changes depending on what the question is. Yeah. So it's getting out of the mindset it's just blogs. It's not. It's whatever. It could be videos, could be podcasts, could be webinars. Okay. And I'll show you an example.
It's evolving, isn't it? It's evolving all the time, which is the challenge.
Exactly. So how do you create great content? It's intent. Because if you know the intent of the reader, you'll make it relevant. And as you can see here, 3 key organic words: how to, which tells me I'm looking for something educational; tiling, but what? Floor, wall, ceiling tiles? Bathroom. So it's going to be either wall or floor. It knows video over written content is probably more prevalent here. And therefore, just doing a search on this particular term, as you can see there, is show me the video first and foremost. So therefore, that's where our mindset should be when we write content, is know the question your customer's asking and then think about how you deliver that content. It might be a video, it might be a TikTok video for all who care, and hence the reason you get better traction and therefore more engagement. And also then going beyond just thinking about it as text. In this one, for the Swansea Digital, which is a group I run, I've looked at specific terms, Swansea Digital Marketing, and you can see I am in there an awful lot. This is just above the fold, right? I dominate. When I go to a generic term and I just put in marketing services, I still have a few in there that are relevant. So when it comes to creating images or any other sort of content, remember your branding. Remember the VCP principle. We're not trying to just make a sale or repeat marketing for the sake of those sales. We're trying to leave people with a taste of branding. Because ultimately, as you can see here, when you dominate, you dominate. And then just to finish up, so before, I like to use the analogy when I'm talking to people, SEO is very much like your garden. It's untidy, it's messy. Hopefully in time, it becomes more organized. But like any form of gardening, it requires consistency, care, and being communicative in order to make sure it's maintained. So my takeaways today are: apply the VCP principle, content is more than text, and remember to grow your trust. There was a question there. Sorry, I missed that. Let me just...
Nigel's just bragging himself up again. Because he came up in the Google results.
I've got my beautiful silver lock, so I thought, well, that's me.
Well, to be honest, it's like when I was talking to Prith, and I had a lovely conversation with her, and really, really nice. As I said to her, your particular field, it's about you. You are the brand. So the first thing I would expect to see on your website is pictures of you. Mm-hmm. You are the brand. Sell you.
Yeah. So on that topic, Andy, and I think just as a general insight, if I can call it that, I think I've seen people go down the rabbit hole with SEO, and I think it's probably worth mentioning that we talked over the last couple of weeks, and I'm not 100% sure whether you were in on all those conversations. We talked over the last couple of weeks about how much effort we must put into our marketing strategies, right? And it's really important to build a kind of repeatable, robust mechanism that will get you leads, right? And SEO is one of those, right? So it's fair to point out for most of us on this call, and myself included at the moment, our business, Real Inbound, is probably more focused on SEO and audience generation than any of the others, because we will pick up work off randoms, you know. Whereas a lot of you guys are smaller consultants, Chris, and get by a lot on your personal credibility. So don't underestimate your website's power.
No.
As the
Word of mouth is still valid.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was at Evening Post, you know, we were looking at generating 4 million uniques a month. You know, none of us are in that world. You know, it's
I don't have enough lifetime left to get that many.
Well, I was thinking about you, Chris, because I can see your face and I can see you writing notes, and I know how your mind works, and yeah, SEO is absolutely a credible strategy.
SEO is 90% opinion, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and there's that.
Because the way that people apply it is different. But the one thing that is consistent is this is the means by which people communicate more and more every day. So applicable to every brand, we are all media companies first before we deliver our product or service. So we can't be found, you know, and this is where SEO becomes more important then. We need to make sure that our website is as sharp as it can be, because there's so many people vying out there. And we've seen it over the last decades. MFI, Courts, Toys R Us, all these have disappeared because they've had more to leverage and they can't be agile in the market. And you get these smaller companies who can just say, well, I'm doing a website purely based on children's clothing. It's going to be way cheaper than mother care. And then when everybody's stealing your traffic, because they're going to search online first and foremost, you've got no brand left. And we've seen that with too many big boys, to be honest. And I mean, they talk about the high street come back. It'll never come back. It just won't happen.
So here's an interesting question. Oh, go on, go for it.
Oh, sorry. There's two ways of getting people to your website. Okay, one is to go out and seek them and put adverts and place advertisements out there to attract their attention and bring them in. The other way is SEO. Now, a lot of people don't pay much attention to SEO. I see it every day I'm going through the internet. and we all see it, hard to find websites and everything else. But one of the things that you've got to remember is that it's not like a race. It's more of a long-term thing, SEO is, and you build it up over a period of time. It's like a long distance run. And so it's not about how fast you're going compared to your competitors. It's, can you get in front? And once you're in front, you keep on adding to it. And if you don't start doing that, you've got a lot of catching up to do in the beginning. I think you'll agree with me. SEO is important depending on your product range. And as Chris said, he'd be happy with probably 10 clients a month, if that. But you still should do it, because why not? It's there. And a lot of the techniques can be learned quite easily. And the number of websites that don't have titles, don't have descriptions, don't have open graph options as well, they just lose out on a very small bit of work, which once done doesn't need much adding to it each time. Sorry, I interrupted you, Tony.
No, actually, it's Natalie. I think she's posed some really interesting questions in the chat, as she always does. And I'd like Andy's opinion. I think in terms of how do you sell SEO, Natalie, I'd first of all caution you about going into that as a career move. It's in a major rush to the bottom, as per your remarks about cheap rubbish content writers as part of an SEO strategy.
Yeah.
Andy.
Andy, just before you go into that, one of the big problems that I have is I have a basic understanding of SEO. And Tony, like you said, I don't try and sell it because it's not something that I want to fix, really, because I don't have the skills or the time. But it seems like such an obvious add-on. And when I'm talking to customers about SEO as part of their overall content strategy and their overall brand strategy, they're like, they always go and they like find some guy to write content for them for like, 10 quid a week or something. And it's just the same, it's meaningless. And I guess I don't really know how to sell SEO to them, because for me, how do I create value for them? They always, the big question comes back to what's the ROI? How do you equate that to sales? And so I kind of brush over things like SEO because I'm thinking, well, they're never going to pay for that. I'd rather get them to do other stuff. But if there was a stronger sales proposition, could probably get that into quite a few customers who desperately need it, but they don't even understand marketing. They don't even get the basics of marketing. Now you want to try and sell them something pretty complex. How do you do that?
Well, I've got a foot, even though I've only got two, in all three camps, right? Marketing, SEO, and data. Nobody wants to understand them because they think they're boring and irrelevant. And you alluded to it there with marketing. People don't understand it. So don't talk in the real terms. What do they want? Because it's the outcome is the thing you're selling. The tools to get there are the technical things that you and I have to understand. Don't bamboozle them with them. I know, I don't sell SEO. I sell results. And I sell results like this, because ultimately you sell it by proof, okay? Yeah. I work for 1 day a month, that's all now for this guy, Steve. He's a single man in London, where there are 80 marketing agencies. He is on page 2 organically for Abacus, and he's on page 1 for Marketing Agency London. Position 8, but for him, he's up against 100, 200 people, agencies. He's a one-man band. It's doable.
He's shooting above his weight, isn't he, there?
Sorry?
He's shooting above his weight.
Well above his weight, well above. But it came down to a structured approach. We needed to make sure the website was having the right conversation. Once that was done, we put 1 blog up a month. That's it. So ultimately, if you were selling SEO, don't sell SEO. What's the benefit of SEO? You want to rank higher, you want more traffic, you want to get more leads. We'll find the way to do that, because SEO is only part of the equation there. Data comes into it, marketing definitely comes into it. Because once you know what the data says and how to implement it, you need marketing to run the campaign. So if you're not wearing all 3 hats, you're not going to get the result.
I've had this conversation, Natalie, with several customers from 2 different perspectives, and I've had one customer obsessed with CRO, and actually, in my opinion, the conversions were quite good, and they weren't putting any effort into growing the audience.
do BS. I don't.
So
If I do quality work, that will translate to quality work. And the reason I say that is because Google will change the game every so often with their core algorithm updates, and everything you've done is undone. But likewise, it's done for the whole industry.
But you would know that you would be able to correlate that change and why the numbers have dropped off because of your knowledge. So that's fine. What I meant was in terms of in a period of 3 months working with someone, can you do you typically, in the vast majority of cases, show an upswing already within 3 months at a reasonable commitment? Because it takes commitment from the customer as well as just getting you in doesn't solve the problem, right? Because the customer has to commit to doing the changes.
Yeah, and that's hard because you don't always get buy-in from a customer. There's many a time I'm writing all the descriptions and everything for them, and it's their business. Either they don't have the time or the care. It's one or the other. And I can tell you, when I went freelance 3 years ago, I worked for agencies and nothing else. I had 20 agencies. I moved up and down the UK as they wanted me to be front and center, facing the clients. There's good and bad agencies out there, simple as. And I don't bend to their will, I bend to my experience because it's me they're expecting to get the result from. So I don't do admin. I show the top of the sales funnel, I show the bottom. I don't promise something I can't deliver, but I don't use guesswork either. I say like, we'll aim for this and we'll aim for that. I did one in London called Verita, and they do consultancy, and they're lucky if 10 people search a month on them because they're very niche. We doubled the traffic in a year. They had 7 leads come from it. Each one of them leads is worth tens of thousands of pounds. So they were happy. They knew that the SEO worked.
It's relative, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I've done genetically modified maggots. It's not a big market, but the conversion is fantastic because you've only got 3 competitors. But likewise, then you could do, like you were alluding to earlier, like inbound marketing. Oh my God, there's so many companies doing that. But what makes you different? That's the key. It's finding that differentiator and exploiting that within your content.
Outstanding.
What if nothing makes you different?
Sorry?
What if nothing makes you different?
It's a good question.
Something always makes you different. Of course, it's the thing is we're not robots. As humans, we make decisions that no one else can do. You know, so therefore you will bring personality into it, decision making into it, priorities into it. These are things that maths can't do.
But your spend can also make you different, Andy.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, but I work for a company, the biggest O2 provider, Aerial Direct, and they were spending £250,000 a month on PPC, and they were just wasting their fucking money. And that's the conversation I had with them, because as I said to them, you have no idea what you really have. You're just throwing money at it. And when we changed it, we've seen the conversions change within a couple of months because it's quite quick with PPC, and they were spending a fraction of that then.
So it was scattergun approach.
£12,000 a month.
So scattergun approach, redirect that cost to something that's more valuable because it's more directed.
It's traditional marketing, pray and spray. We've known it for years. All that digital has given us is the ability to be much more strategic in our approach. So therefore, if you know the names of a customer, you can personalize it. You can then segment your audience. You're going to target them far more effectively. Don't, you know, unless of course you've got deep pockets and you haven't got the time, then throw money at it. You'll get a result. Something will stick.
That's the thing about a lot of big agencies is they get the £1 million budget and then they just sit and think of creative ways of spending it. So I worked with a client in Swansea who was spending £6,000 a month on SEO and PPC, and I said, why are you doing this? So I ended up running a whole series of courses for their marketing team, and they took it over. What they did is they brought in a couple of interns, set them up. I trained those interns as well, and they became their internal marketing teams. They didn't need to go out to an agency then, because when we started looking at what the agency was doing, it was all techniques to make it look good. But Google came in with a massive upgrade, as you mentioned earlier, Andy, and all their work was for nothing. They had to create a new website. They'd almost had to change the URL on the website, which was their brand name. So it's all changed. I mean, it used to be a hell of a lot easier. I can go back to 2000. In fact, I can go back to 98 when the word SEO didn't exist, and Google had only just turned up on the scene.
Was that 1898, Nigel?
One bastard. Oh God, it's been recorded, isn't it? Thank you, Chris. the whole thing about it is that back in those days, you just had to get those key phrases in the terms. But as things have progressed, it's become much more complex. But one of the things I found going to Andy's networking events is that what's happening today is no different from what happened back in 2000. It's just there's more information you can gather in now, and there are more hoops to jump through to actually get to the top of the search engines. But at the end of the day, you've still got to think about that customer. I'm sorry to keep going on about customers. You've got to understand what their intent is, just like Andy said. And it's a pleasure to hear that from you, Andy.
Yeah, no, it's right. I mean, what I say to, and I said this to Prith, because I've heard it so many times, we're all busy. I know I run my own company for 10 years and I was busy being busy. Being a business is a game. So first 10 minutes of every day, just write about you, write about your brand, just 10 minutes. And if you keep doing that consistently and it's on point, you'll meet the intention because you'll do it holistically. And that way, then you'll begin to rank organically for something, because Google values consistency. It's the people that do it ad hoc, don't rank.
That's sort of where I was coming from when I was talking about SEO as a new business generation strategy. You know, your model must support. Two brilliant examples there, actually, Andy, that you showed us. One, an e-commerce site that requires scale in traffic, but maybe the maggots only need 10 new customers a year because each customer is spending. And I know it wasn't the maggots, but so it's important that that effort matches the model as well. You know, if you're never going to be able to. So one of the things we see a lot of, for instance, is customers who are able to drive traffic to their site that they then don't convert, or are able to convert on the basis of a first level conversion. They haven't got lead nurturing set up, for instance, or they don't develop relationships and so on and so on.
So Natalie had, another question. So ghostwriters.
Hang on, Chris. Natalie's asked a question quite a while back. If you don't mind me just chipping that in. She's asking Andy if he runs Google campaigns for people. I suspect there's maybe an interesting conversation to have there.
So Google campaigns in the sense of PPC?
Yeah, I think that's what she's asking for. Is that what you mean, Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, I try to do Google campaigns. I've just spent a shitload of money. I got nothing. I went to Google University, before children 18 years ago, and I was like top of my game. But it's like a whole new world now. I don't understand it.
PPC is a science. I don't do it. Sarah does it in our small agency because it's so difficult. But what I do when it comes to PPC is I do the free version of it. And what I mean by that is you can set up a Google an AdWords account that costs you nothing. You just got to put your credit card in there. Now you have to show the intention of spending £50 a month, £1.67 a day. Okay, so you choose a long tail keyword that has a zero CPC, or a very low cost per click charge, and then you literally do an advertising campaign like that. Now, do you want to rank for that particular keyword? No, not really, but it supports your main offering. And by doing so, what you're doing is sending a signal to Google that says, I value SEO, which is organic and free, but I'm prepared to put my money where my mouth is. And that gets you, more so if you're a new website and you want to get out the sandbox effect, that gets way more traction. Because the danger is if you're in a competing market, and I do one for a guy who does IT managed services, every click is £42. Unless you've got deep pockets, it's never going to happen. So if you're a small business, find something that's long tail but relevant, and just use that. And the chances are you'll spend, and I've got customers do it, spend nothing in a month, or next to nothing in a month, but they're still running PPC campaigns.
And how long do they have to continue to do that to continue seeing the value?
Well, again, see, I don't know, because I don't run Google, but I use common sense. Is if I was doing something and I was showing my intention and then I stopped doing it, would you value it anymore? Probably not as much. Yeah. So if you're going to do it, you've got to stick with it.
Okay.
I was
going to say, I run PPC and I just cap the spend. So I spend almost nothing and I get brilliant data, because I think the data you get from the AdWords platform is better than the data you get from any of Google's other platforms. So I don't go for something obscure. I go for something I want to rank for.
Yes.
So I just spend pretty much nothing on it. I cap every click and I cap every day. So I'm not spending any money, but I'm getting great insight and data.
I'm chuffing, and I'm not knocking it. It's the second principle of marketing. It depends. Depends what will work for you may not work in another market. So when I'm dealing with a client, they've got to educate me to their market, their DNA, and what will change. And I've seen plenty who spend money get money. I mean, we do a Caltech. We use an agency, Colwood, and Kerry I deal with there. For every £11 we spend, for every pound we spend, we get £11 back. So it's no brainer. The only thing is we have limitations of how much we can manufacture. So it's a case of controlling the PPC. So in tandem, definitely. Is it for everyone? It depends. Yes and no. But when it comes to data, you were saying from Google AdWords, I'm a purist through and through. I don't trust one source. So I go through Google Analytics, Search Console, I use SEMrush, I use a raft of tools, and you go through statistical confidence to paint the picture. And if you know who you are, and you kind of got your elevator pitch down, you'll find the obvious keywords that resonate with you anyway.
Excellent. Any more for any more? Nigel, you were trying to say something. Did you want to jump in again to finish us up? He's gone for a cup of tea.
Oh, he's lost his voice.
Or he's talking away and he's not realised he's muted.
Or he's jumped off that little tiny building in Greece.
I missed that one. Sorry, I can hear you, but I realised I was on mute. Sorry. The whole thing, I've got a sign which I bring out when I'm doing training courses and seminars. It says, it all depends, because everyone is different, as Andy said. And it is about understanding what the customer's objectives are, what they're trying to achieve, what their budgets are as well, because often when I say to clients, they say, well, I say, what's your budget? And they go, oh, well, we don't know. And I say, why won't you give me an answer? And they come back with things like, well, if we tell you it's £10,000, then you'll spend 10,000 quid. And I said, no, I say, no, it's not that particular purpose for knowing it. It's because if you've only got £500 to spend, the strategy that you use is going to be different than if you've got 10,000 to spend. And again, if you spend 10,000, now you're going to get more work in than you can deal with, because there's all those knock-on effects that you get. So it's understanding the business and what they're trying to achieve. I've worked on AdWords campaigns for a number of different organizations, and they've come to me after they've been using other people who've just gone this splash the money out to see what we can do. Very loosely done. Google loves them because virtually every keyword will raise their ad up, and it'll cost them money because people click through, but it's going to the wrong place. And there's so many mistakes being made by people who are trying to do it themselves, even today. I've got my own principles on working it, which Google doesn't like because it's a minimum spend process. But you get lots of exposure. People see your advert, and it's about making sure you can get that advert for the right long tail, as Andy said, the long tail keywords, okay, which are very low cost. Your money goes a lot further, and if you've picked the right key phrases, you've done everything correctly, then your conversion rate on those one a week people is going to bring you income.
I don't know if Andy would agree, but I think in the case of PPC, I usually, we also do PPC for customers. You know, there are levels, aren't there? But it is very much a science. And I think if you really are reliant on buying in your business, like a lot of e-commerce companies are, for instance, you know, many people, including myself, regard much of the internet today as a pay-to-play internet. In other words, you simply buy customers, be that through PPC or through social media advertising or through SEO or not so much SEO, but then, you know, look for a reputable expert, because there's a lot of people dabbling out there. I think most people, in my experience, most people don't even set up their Google Analytics correctly. Andy, I'm sure you found that to be exactly the same.
PPC is really hard. I failed the exam 4 times. It is really, really hard.
Yeah,
Because
and the
there's
kids
so
who are
many
doing it,
strategies
they're
and
just,
stuff like that.
yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. No, I know exactly where you're coming from. I think, like Nigel, you know, I think you can understand it on a conceptual level, and you kind of get it. But when it gets into actually manipulating the tools, manipulating the algorithms, and manipulating the intent stuff, the bottom of the funnel, the top of the funnel, there's just you've got to use the right stuff. You know, you've got to have the right tools, you've got to have the right set of experience. And some of these kids today, they're just amazing when it comes to this stuff.
The thing is with PPC, it works, providing you've got everything else working around it as well. If you haven't got the content, if you haven't got a credible website,
yeah, totally.
You know,
totally.
you can sell ice to the, you know, igloos to. What was the one you used, Nigel?
Refrigerators to Eskimos.
That's the one. You can, because
Cultural
someone will bloody click
approbation.
on it. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to if you're spending big money on PPC, you need a specialist. Don't mess around, because you'll get far more value for it if you do that right. I understand it enough to play with it for the stuff that I do, but I don't have the care or the intention, because you need to be doing it every single day. I prefer the SEO, and the rhyme and reason is SEO stays around longer. And if you do it well, Kevin is a guy I'm thinking of, Hygienica. We had 7 of his features on page 1. Between the rich snippet, position 0, the map pack, organic terms, paid positions, you know what was his chances of getting the leads? Bloody high. So that's the game to play when you're spinning all the plates. And some companies are like that. But again, see, if you were coming into that field and you were coming into insurance, right? How deep are your pockets? Or more specifically, be specific. So if you were doing multi-animal pet insurance or something like that, then that's very different from insurance for a house, holiday, car, or home. So you have to be very specific. Whilst you may use the generic term at the top of your website, as you talk about it through your blogs and everything else, you're educating the search engines. You're telling them really what differentiates you. And that's what makes the difference when you're spending money.
Spot on.
Very valuable.
I did see one earlier with Natalie there with Fiverr. It's like everything, Fiverr, Upwork, PPH. I've used them all. I've been on them as well. It's pick and mix. It comes down to the gaff factor, whether they give a fuck or not. I mean, it's what makes a difference. People that will go above and beyond to do something. I have 2 content writers that write for my websites all the time, and I've gone through loads, and they're bloody good, really, really good, and they're worth the money.
Okay, I'm gonna pull the recording to an end. I will edit out that
yeah, please.
Yeah, no